Alicia, now let's bring in Karl Rove, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff under President George W. Bush. Karl, welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
So President Trump's big, beautiful bill passed by one vote in the House of Representatives. Now senators are talking about making changes on their side of the Capitol. That has to be making Speaker Mike Johnson and his leadership team very anxious. What about all that?
Well, remember, it passed in the House for one reason. A Democrat congressman died on the eve of the vote, Jerry Connolly of Virginia. Otherwise, it would have been tied 215 to 215, and the bill would not have passed. So very complicated in the House. The Senate is going to not just simply follow the House. That never happens. They're going to come at this and make changes, and then we're going to see how the House and Senate come to a negotiated conclusion to all of this. We're doing this on really, frankly, on pretty fast terms. If you remember, in 2017, President Trump signed his tax bill, the predecessor to this big, beautiful bill, most of which the elements are being renewed in this bill. He signed it on December 22nd. And that was when the Republicans had a significant majority. I think it was nearly 40 members in the House. They have a much smaller majority this time around.
All right, so I talked about Speaker Mike Johnson's headaches. Senate Majority Leader John Thune's headaches are getting 51 yes votes. What about that process? Well,
and again, we're going to go through the same thing that the House did. That is to say, we're going to have the Senate Finance Committee, much like the House Ways and Means Committee, take a look at elements of the tax bill. We're going to have the Help Committee looking at Medicaid, like Energy and Commerce in the House looked at it. So we've got weeks of work here, if not months of work here. The idea that this is somehow going to be done quickly and easily is simply not the way Washington works, certainly on as big and complex a bill as this is. So lots of work to be done on the Senate side. The interesting thing to me is recently we had here in Austin a conference, and at the conference was the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee and the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, Jason Smith in the House, Mike Crapo in the Senate. The interesting thing is in their speeches at different times during the day, they both said the same thing. They said, we have to stay close to two people, Donald Trump and in the case of Mike Crapo, Jason Smith, the Ways and Means chairman, and in the case of Jason Smith, he said Mike Crapo. So there's an awareness that they've got to try and work this thing together. We'll see how well it works out.
To all the buzz and reporting about former President Biden's declining health while in office, we've got these books out where a lot of people who were on the inside are saying things differently than they did when they were in office. It's not unusual when you're a senior official in an administration to be loyal and protective of your boss, but shouldn't there be limits, Karl?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there are two groups of hypocrites here. They're the people who were inside the administration, who saw up close and personal that he was not up to the job, who said and created an environment in which people on the outside were led to believe something else. So those people are problematic. But so are the members of the media. The members of the media who dismiss concerns by people, including Democrats like James Carville and David Axelrod, that Biden was not up to the job. So this is anybody who is on the record defending this is going to have something to say to apologize for if they seek higher office or want to play a bigger role inside the future of the Democratic Party. That's why this is going to work to the disadvantage of Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg, both of whom were in a position to see Biden, and work to the advantage of Democratic governors who might seek the nomination of their party in 2028, who didn't have the day in, day out interaction that members of the administration had with President Biden.
Karl, Chairman James Comer in the House Oversight Committee, Senator Ron Johnson on the Senate side want voluntary interviews with a variety of senior officials in the Biden orbit, basically close to him. Do you think they will come voluntarily, or do you think there will need to be subpoenas?
I think there'll need to be subpoenas. Nobody wants to go before a congressional committee on something as contentious as this without being forced to do so.
Karl Rove, grateful for your analysis today. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.